Good morning, this is Richard Moore from Racing Profits, and today I'm down in Hampshire with Peter Webb, one of the UK's leading traders on Betfair and also the developer of BetAngel software. First of all, Peter, can we just have a little bit of background about yourself? How did you get into trading in the first place, and some of your background?
Sure. I go back many years ago when my dad used to give me a football pulse coupon, and that was my introduction into sports markets and gambling and so on. And obviously the dream then was to win the football pulse. And that sort of got me interested in the whole statistical and betting and gambling side of the business. And back then I had very few ideas about what I wanted to do and how, but was just very interested in it, and that eventually sort of led me in this very long and winding path to Betfair.
So you weren't initially, what was your background career-wise? Did you?
It was primarily technology, and that's sort of how it all started.
Programming or coding? Or,
yeah. And my dad bought me a ZX81 when I was very young.
I remember.
Yeah.
Showing our age now.
We are, right? And the kids laugh at it actually now when they see all the old technology that we had.
I remember programming for hours just to get a man to go like that.
That's
on the
right,
screen.
Yeah. 5 print Peter, 10 go to 5.
That's it.
And it was using the computer that I started picking up the Rothman's annual yearbook.
Right.
And tip-tapping away all of the matches and who'd scored goals and all these sort of things.
Analysing data.
Yeah, and just number crunching really. And the ultimate aim was maybe to find some magical way to make money from sports betting that nobody had discovered before.
Right.
But I never actually never figured that would actually happen.
Reinvent the wheel.
Yeah.
That's right.
So it was good fun, and I was learning to program, and that was the place at which I started.
Yeah. And did you also trade on the stocks? Did you ever?
I did. Well, after many years of trying to make money from gambling, I realised that it was a bit of a futile exercise.
Gambling being the word.
Yeah, and the house edge was just too large, and therefore I decided that I'd go for the biggest casino of the lot, which was the stock market.
Right.
So I was using analytical skills and trying to understand and get to grips with the way that financial markets worked, and I really thought that would actually be where I ended up.
Yeah.
So I quite enjoyed that and enjoyed the challenge of it, and it was very similar to sports betting and gambling early on, in that you were trying to find an edge and looking for
the angle to make that margin from. And then what brought you round into the betting exchanges as we know them now?
Well, the curious thing was that during my episode through technology markets and through financial markets, I used to attend a precursor to Dragon's Den,
right.
a thing called First Tuesday.
Okay, yeah.
And the idea of First Tuesday was you get entrepreneurs, venture capitalists all pitching to each other. A good excuse for a drink and a sales pitch.
To meet like-minded people.
Yeah, so there were lots of people who had very good technology skills, people who had financial skills, people who'd run businesses, and everybody was put into that melting pot. This was just pre the dot-com boom, and I used to go there just for the experience really, and understand how that worked and what to do and stuff, with the intention one day of...
So how long ago was this?
This was in the late 90s.
Oh, was it? Right.
So we're talking around sort of 96 onwards.
Right, yeah.
And in the run-up to the early 2000s was when all of that activity was taking place.
And then obviously that was when Betfair was launched in around 2000, and you were very early on, were you, within the first few days of them launching?
Well, I heard about the concept at a First Tuesday meeting.
Right.
So basically people...
Was that from someone in Betfair, or was it
No, it was unrelated. I don't know whether this person had heard of Betfair and copied the idea, or whether they had come up with the idea and Betfair copied them, or you don't know where these things come from.
No.
But the idea was planted in my head very early on, about a full year before Betfair came around. And it was part of a pitch that somebody made during one of these meetings, and I just thought, I like that idea.
Yeah.
And so when Betfair and Flutter were around, I signed up for them straight away, because I heard about the concept, liked the idea, and I thought, well, maybe there is an opportunity here.
So what were your early thoughts about Betfair? What did that enable you to do that you hadn't been able to do before?
At the beginning, very little.
Because there were so few people in there.
Yeah, there wasn't much going on. And my initial interest was arbitraging.
Right.
So I'd get a good price from a bookmaker, and the main interest was laying, to be honest.
Yeah.
It was the first time you'd ever been able to lay.
Yeah.
So
I think that's why when I joined Betfair about 7 years ago, that was just to do the laying side. That was what excited me, because I seemed to be very good at that time of finding horses that weren't going to win races. So
yeah,
to profit from that was certainly an advantage of Betfair, and that's what you liked. So you'd get a price that you felt was a few points higher than your Betfair lay price, and obviously you could then profit on the.
Absolutely. So arbitrage was the first place I started, and it made sense, and it was obvious to me that the opportunity was there, and I would go and back a very high price at a bookmaker, lay off on Betfair, and see what happens. But it would take hours, if not days.
And of course, there weren't as many online bookmakers then, were there either? So
no. I wouldn't usually nip down the bookies, or
so you wouldn't have odds checker or anything to check the odds and get your best odds there.
No, I was odds checker.
You were odds checker, the early form of odds checker sat here. So then you'd go to the bookie, the local bookie, place your bet as a back bet, and then go and trade it off and arbitrage it, like you say, on Betfair. Yeah,
I would just offer up a price and see if anybody took it, really.
And that was how long? About 11 years ago, you say?
That was way back in 2000. So I think my first ever bet was on golf. I think it was a £5 bet on golf, if I remember correctly. And that was where I started, and I started messing around on financial bets. And because I had prior knowledge of football as well, I started doing a lot on football as well.
Yeah, well, that's the thing. I mean, obviously our focus has always been on horse racing, but there are, as you explained yesterday in the masterclass that you took, there's a lot of sports that you can use the same principles for.
Yeah, and I mean, I got very interested in racing very quickly afterwards.
And you obviously know your tennis now.
Yes.
Was that just through trading on tennis, or was that actually an interest in tennis anyway?
Yeah, I quite like. I've always liked playing sports. Unfortunately, I just seem to be injured permanently now. But the big three sports on Betfair and on exchanges in general are racing, football and tennis. Yeah,
and you say big three as in liquidity, that's where the most money is traded backwards and forwards.
Yeah, those are the huge markets. And the thing that caught my attention on racing was, you hear all these stories about people making money from racing, and the randomness of racing I quite enjoy. And I've actually learnt to enjoy that as a sport as well.
Have you? Yeah.
So, the uncertainty and...
So your enjoyment of horse racing came from understanding. And I suppose the more you understand the sport as well, the better trader you become in it, do you?
Yeah.
You spot more opportunities as you go through.
I would say they're not mutually exclusive, so you don't need to understand sport to be successful, but you would be more successful if you do.
If you understand the sport.
So, understanding an early season maiden is different from a competitive late season handicap.
That's right, yeah.
And, all of the grades, and, you begin to learn certain types of horses and the way that horses are run and stuff like this. It becomes quite a fascinating
and even different
thing.
Courses, as we know, different course can have a totally different outcome.
Very much so.
Very interesting. And then obviously we'll go into the software you developed later on. We'll do a session on that. But that was around 2004, was it, that you started to develop BetAngel? That's
right. Well, other apps had been around before BetAngel, and I'd spoken to these developers and asked them if they could change or implement certain things, but it just never happened.
No.
So I eventually got fed up and decided to do it myself, and I thought that's the only way to do it.
To develop what you want and what you feel that it needs.
Yeah, I could see all of the opportunity in front, but I just didn't have anything to do that with, so I had to go out and develop myself.
Yeah, and a lot of the functions that you've developed in it have been industry first anyway, haven't they? They've something you haven't had anywhere else, so you've developed it yourself to help yourself.
That's right, yeah, and even Betfair have taken on things like keep bets and fill or kill functionality and all of those areas.
Great. Well, that's lovely. That's some background to yourself. We'll move on next to trading itself and exchange trading, but we'll just pause there. Thank you very much, Peter.